It was a weekend full of bad news for the Atlanta Falcons, who I think their season might be over already. We'll discuss on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso, with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts who know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the legacy, Louis DiBiase. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, we are going to recap preseason week one. Football is back, folks, and there were a lot of juicy storylines. We got the Cleveland Browns quarterback battle taking place. We got some of these rookie quarterbacks like Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza, looking pretty good out there, but we start with negative news. It's the Atlanta Falcons, man. They just had a tough weekend. In the preseason game, Tua struggles mightily. We get the James Pierce Jr. news. Louis, for me, just my quick reaction is I didn't have a lot of high hopes for the Falcons already this year, but after seeing their preseason game and then getting this news about JPJ, it's hard not to believe that their season's not even – it's going to crash before it ever gets to take off, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they are playing behind the eight ball already before the season begins. And they already were kind of a fragile team that had pieces, right? I mean, they have a lot of weapons, Pitts, Robinson, Drake London. But the quarterback position was already so fragile with Penix and Tua. Now you take away what was becoming something that was a weakness to a strength, their pass rush. They lose Jalen Walker for the year, their first-round pick. JPJ now is suspended for half the year. I just don't know how this team starts off fast. And in the NFL, I don't want to say your season is defined by September and October, but if you're, 4 games under 500 by that halfway point, it's really hard to dig yourself out of that hole, especially in a modern day NFL that has so much parity and there's so many teams that are fighting for playoff spots deep into November and December.
Yeah, it's going to make it real tough if you're not playing your best, and it's going to be hard for Tua to be playing his best in this system or Michael Penix to come back and be playing in this system. Now, I will say their first 4 games at Steelers, Carolina, at Green Bay, at New Orleans, I mean, they might be able to find a way to scratch something out in between there, but with the way that Tua played in that game, if he plays like that, there's no way they're going to beat anybody. And for more from the scene in Atlanta, we go to my guy Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons.
It was very much the struggle bus for the Falcons in their 27-7 preseason opening loss to the Denver Broncos, especially on offense. Tua Tagovailoa certainly did not make a very compelling case to be the Falcons' week 1 starter, with a 3-for-5 performance for 22 yards, and the offense really doing nothing on the 2 series he was in the game. But it just wasn't the Falcons starters that struggled. Their backups struggled on offense. The defense played better than the scoreboard indicates, but the Broncos' main starters early in the game really had little to no problem moving the ball against the Falcons' defensive starters. And so overall, it was a pretty forgettable game and debut for the Kevin Stefanski-led Falcons. But hey, the uniforms look nice, so that's at least one positive we can take away from this game.
The uniforms are pretty solid. Great color combination for the Falcons. Makes it hard to have bad uniforms, but I'll just say this. I said before the preseason happened, and when the Bijan Robinson contract extension happened, that I know it sounds crazy, but I might have considered trading him if they could get multiple first-round picks for him. I just think when you don't have a quarterback, having a running back like that is such a luxury, and they've never made the playoffs with Bijan Robinson, so it's fair to wonder what kind of impact he can have if they don't have other things. I was thinking, hey, if they have multiple first-round picks, then they're going to be able to finally find their quarterback and maybe a quarterback-rich draft. But they might have found a blessing in disguise. They may be so bad this year with their quarterback and edge rush situation that they might actually get a chance at one of those quarterbacks, and then they have all the weapons and the young QB.
It's a good point. That is normally why I don't like drafting a running back high, like the Arizona Cardinals taking Jeremiah Love or the Raiders last year going with Ashton Genty when you don't have the quarterback, when you don't have the roster ready to go. And so maybe this year, because Atlanta is bad, though, it will allow them to get that player, and then Bijan does make sense. But I think they're going to rely even more on Bijan Robinson, Tyler, because of all these injuries. They're going to have to score a lot of points, and it doesn't seem like they can rely on the passing game if Tua's the quarterback. So I think it depends on the way you look at it. From a long-term building perspective, yeah, I see where you're going with that. But for this year, if Kevin Stefanski wants to keep this team relevant and compete in a pretty open NFC South, they need Bijan Robinson more than ever.
No, you're absolutely right. And when they hired Kevin Stefanski, I think you're on to. They knew that was going to be the case no matter what. They probably realized they weren't going to be able to get any kind of game-changing quarterback in any way or anything like that. So they knew that Bijan was going to be the heart and soul of the offense. Kevin Stefanski seems like he's always been a run-driven. You always wonder, is Kevin Stefanski run-driven because of the quarterbacks he's had, or is Kevin Stefanski run-driven because that's truly what he wants to be in his heart? We may never know the true answer, but either way, it's going to be interesting to see how they survive in Atlanta this year and who ultimately plays at quarterback, how long. But I wanted to bring up big news in the NFC South as well with the New Orleans Saints. And it's not quite game related with their preseason matchup this week, but Jordyn Tyson, hamstring injury, gonna miss time. Louis, that was the big knock on Tyson. I was a big Tyson believer coming into the draft, the talent, the route running, the explosion. He's a really dynamic player, but this was the concern and why he fell a little bit in the draft to the New Orleans Saints, despite being so talented. And now he's already going to miss time. He missed some time early in the process after the draft. And the reason I'm putting this here is because with the Saints' issues at wide receiver on the depth chart, without Jordyn Tyson, I think that is a major impact. I think that is something that's going to hurt the Saints enough to where I think it might affect wins and losses.
Yeah, I agree. Jordyn Tyson was going to be, I think, a top 2 player in that passing attack from a, targets perspective. And he was my number 1 receiver in this year's draft, even over the guy that went to your Titans, Carnell Tate. Same. I believe Jordyn Tyson from a just pure talent kind of viewpoint was that guy. But the hamstrings, it's almost chronic at this point where it's coming. When you define a player as injury prone, it's for things like this, soft tissue problems that just continue to recur. And the fact that that happened before the regular season even started is disappointing. That's why I've been a little bit hesitant, I should say, on really predicting the Saints to go far this year, to win the division, to make the playoffs. I love the talent they have, but so many of these core pieces are kind of injury prone. And so it's already started before the year. And that's why I want to believe in the Saints, right? And they're in a wide open NFC South. I could see a scenario where they pull it off and win it. But a lot of this offensive core has this kind of will they, won't they play kind of situation. And Tyson, who knows if he'll miss time, but that's, in August dealing with a hamstring already is not a good start.
Louis, it's just another team like the Chargers last year.
Yeah.
The madman's curse. I'm high on them throughout the offseason. I'm like, hey, this is my surprise team this year that's going to win the division and take the step forward.
Yeah, you're placing a hex on these teams.
I know. And then they start falling apart.
You should have placed them on somebody in the AFC South. You should have said you're high on the Colts again or
I've been trying to do this with the Texans. I've been saying the Texans are going to be top 5 all year in hopes that I can maybe do that, but it's never going to help me enough in that regard. So I'm sorry, Saints fans. If they can get healthy, though, I do like the Saints. I think Brandon Staley is a really good defensive coordinator, even if he's not a good head coach. He had that pass defense really locked in by the middle of last season. Their pass rush, is it good enough? We will see with that pass defense. It kind of helps a little bit. But that offense, I love their young O-line, which is really what it comes down to. They just need healthy weapons. Kellen Moore is a good play caller. But, yeah, if they're banged up and a lot of their guys, you're right, are maybe injury prone, one little thing away from being out, it makes them a risky bet. But with that being said, risky bet to take a quarterback in the first round. You never know how it's going to work out. But early returns on Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson look pretty good in week 1 of the preseason. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, there are more live events than ever worth seeing right now. You have games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part usually isn't deciding what you want to attend. It's actually getting the tickets. Between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to Game Time, the app built to make buying tickets simple with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive savings opportunities that help you get to events you want without the usual hassle. I buy all of my tickets on Game Time. NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB, concert, comedy. I bought it all because they have the best features in the industry. That's why you need to take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, Louis, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Again, recapping week 1 of the preseason. We talked about the Falcons' problems, the Saints dealing with a hammy issue with Jordyn Tyson, which is unfortunate for all of us draftnicks out there after following Tyson throughout the process. But now I want to talk about some other guys who had a lot of opinions surrounding them coming out of the NFL draft, our 2 first-round quarterbacks. And we start with Fernando Mendoza, who had an excellent outing in his first preseason opener. And I got to tell you, Louis, I have been saying this for weeks, and I've gotten some pushback from Michelle, from some different hosts, some blah, blah, blah. But I think Fernando Mendoza is already better than Kirk Cousins. I think it's obvious, and I think that they can play around all they want with this. Hey, we're going to let the kids sit. Hey, we don't want to push him too soon, too fast, too early. But if he is the best quarterback in the building and at practice and all that, you owe it to the rest of the players to put him on the field and not just hold him back for no reason. 10 of 16, 97 yards, touchdown pass. Like, he looked good out there. Do you think I'm crazy? Should it be Fernando Mendoza right away?
I'm always a believer in starting your rookie quarterbacks right away. I think there's certain situations where maybe like an Anthony Richardson, maybe you don't throw him to the fire right away, but I don't know.
Mendoza's way more pro-ready than Richardson,
that's the thing about Mendoza.
What I said.
The knock on Mendoza coming into this draft wasn't really about the floor. I think it was about the ceiling. Right. Is he really worth a first overall pick, or was he just in a weaker class? So for me, Mendoza's issues weren't about being pro-ready now. I understand, though, like wanting a quarterback to learn from the sidelines for a whole year and taking your time developing them the quote-unquote right way. Tom Brady believes that there is a quarterback development problem in the league. If you're going to stick with that plan, fine. If Kirk Cousins is going to play the whole year, then okay. I still like to play the guy for a year. I feel like your development is fast-tracked when you're on the football field. I feel like you learn more from playing, even if things are going up and down, than being on the sidelines. But if you're going to stick to that plan, fine. I just don't believe, Tyler, that's going to happen. I think odds are Kirk Cousins probably plays, I don't know, a month and a half. The Raiders are probably like 2-4 at best, and then Mendoza plays anyway. So what's learning for 6 weeks on the sidelines really going to do to benefit him? So I think you're kind of wasting time. Unless you're going to sit him the entire year no matter what and not waver from that plan, I think Mendoza should be on the field. And like you said, I mean, he looks pro-ready. That was never a knock on him coming out of Indiana.
That's what I don't understand about this whole conversation. It's like, one of the things that was good about Fernando Mendoza was that he was so polished and he was ready, and like he ran a good system and was a mature adult, and like it wasn't like this, guy that needs mass development. I'll tell you, they're in a weird spot if they do the Kirk Cousins thing from the jump, because they play the Dolphins week 1. That might be the easiest game on the schedule. Then they're at the Chargers, which isn't that far away from Vegas, so it's not like a huge trouble. They're at the Saints, which I think the Saints will be good this year, but you can't look at the Saints and say like that's like the Raiders could beat the Saints. That wouldn't be an absolute shocker or anything. But then they have Chiefs, Patriots, Bills, Rams. And then they're at the Jets all the way across the country. And then they have 49ers, Seahawks, Broncos.
Yeah. Jeez.
Like, that is an insane stretch all the way to Thanksgiving. And then it lets up, and it's Browns, Chargers, Broncos, Titans, Cardinals, Chiefs. I mean, it lets up, but you still have all of the AFC West in there who are very difficult, and the Broncos twice in a stretch of 4 weeks. Like, there is no part of the season that is weaker on a 3-game stretch than Dolphins, Chargers, Saints. So it's like you can make the argument that like the schedule is hard and that's why they should play Kirk Cousins, but he needs to play eventually this year. And there's no way that he's not going to be better than Cousins at some point once he mentally catches up. And if they just keep him off the field because that's what Tom Brady says is the right thing to do, that is insane.
I agree. I think everybody should have a different individual plan for each player. Do you know what I mean? I don't think every single player benefits from sitting the whole year like Tom Brady believes. I also don't believe that every guy should be thrown into the fire week 1. But if you look at the context of this situation, I think Mendoza should play. And look, he doesn't have great weapons. I don't think he has an elite receiving core. He might have the worst receiving core in football. The only one that can rival it is probably Miami. But he's got enough to support him. I think he's got a really talented running back behind him, and Ashton Genty, who might be a top 10 talent in the league at that position. Brock Bowers is a top 5 tight end in the NFL. Kubiak is a play caller that proved last year with Sam Darnold that he can elevate a quarterback to a championship level status. So I also do think there's enough support for Mendoza on the field that justifies him playing. I would also understand like not wanting to throw a player into the fire when they have a bad offensive line, bad weapons, but I think the Raiders have enough where Mendoza can grow this year. I'm not expecting them with that schedule you just laid out to, compete for the playoffs, compete for the AFC West, but I think he should be on the field. And yeah, I'm with you. Why waste time? I would just do it week 1.
Hey, and you're right. He doesn't have the best wide receivers in the world, but there's one guy who is standing out in a major way, according to my guy Q from Locked On Raiders.
Well, don't call me shocked, but Malik Benson continues to stack days. He's still Mendoza's number 1 target. I had people that were there in attendance at Allegiant Stadium that were sending me texts during the scrimmage or during the practice saying, hey, man, this is the first time I've seen Benson. He's good. Every time you look down, that number 19, that's something that I talked about, even OTAs, mandatory minicamp. There's guys that make plays, and you look down at your roster and say, wait, what number was that? Oh, 19. Oh, Benson. Oh, what was number that? Oh, that was 19 again. Oh, man, 19 again, to the point where you ain't looking at your roster anymore. You know exactly who that player is.
And Benson had a couple of catches for Mendoza in that game, so it's like, hey, you're right. If he's got Bowers, he's got Genty, he's got Kubiak, now he's got, somebody who's been running with the twos with him that he feels comfortable with, and Benson, they can build off of something like that. I feel very confident that Mendoza is going to play sooner rather than later because I think he's going to make a big impact. He's a better player right now than Kirk Cousins is, but Ty Simpson is not a better player than Matthew Stafford, and he is not going to play over him. But 21 to 25, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. People acted like Ty Simpson was overdrafted. He sure did look comfortable in that game against the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't believe, actually, how good he looked in that game. I know he's got a great play caller. He's going into a great situation, but I was not very high on Ty Simpson in this draft. I didn't believe he was a first-round talent, let alone a top 15 pick like he was with the Rams. And I ate crow in that first game for sure. He looked really sharp inside the pocket. I thought he looked really well off on the move, like making passes on the run. So I was pleasantly surprised with how a lot of rookies looked week 1. There were a couple positions in this class I didn't feel like were super strong, including quarterback. And again, it's one preseason game, but if you're a Rams fan, you should be pretty excited about what you saw. And again, like you said, he's not better than Matt Stafford. You're not going to see him all year. So these are the really important reps for Simpson in his development plan.
Yeah, you do not want to see Ty Simpson if you're a Rams fan this year. I'll be honest with you. I think the best thing that could happen for the Rams is Ty Simpson looks good, continues to look good, never has to actually play, and then you're able to flip him for a star quarterback after Matthew Stafford retires. Like, imagine if the Bengals flounder, and then they could flip Ty Simpson and a first-round pick for Joe Burrow or
do
something
the Goff
like that.
Stafford thing all over again. Yeah,
exactly, something like that. I'm just saying, just thinking out loud.
Hey,
but you're right.
The Rams think outside the box, man. If anyone would do something like that, which is very rare, it would be them.
Got to give some credit, too, while we're talking about rookie quarterbacks, to Drew Aller. He was 10 for 13, 153 yards, had 2 touchdowns. He looked good. And he's a guy who has really, really good traits, but kind of made some weird decisions and didn't put it all together at Penn State, dealt with some injuries at times. They're going to have to pick one of Drew Aller and Will Howard, and I think Drew Aller probably has the lead right now.
I think he should. I really like his ceiling. Coming out of Penn State, he was somebody that I thought with the size, with the arm strength, the mobility, could be worth a shot. Like end of day 2, early day 3 flyer. The problem with him at Penn State was always just mechanics. He has all the ability in the world to make any kind of throw he wants, but too often on film, you'd see him just duff it, 5 yards in front of his target or overthrow him by 10 yards. And I will say that first preseason game, it's only one game, but I thought his mechanics looked a lot smoother. Everything looked in sync. Footwork, hip movement, throwing motion looked tighter. So that was a good start. And yeah, when you're making a decision between him and Will Howard, I personally think that Eller has the higher ceiling. And as a guy that's not going to play for at least one whole year, I think at that point you kind of prioritize traits, and I think that would be Eller.
Well, I think two things that I have to say, they both are about Mike McCarthy. Drew Aller was the one who was selected by the new coaching staff.
Great point. True.
That's something that gives him a major advantage. And two, I don't know that Mike McCarthy was the right choice for the Pittsburgh Steelers overall as a team, but for developing somebody like Drew Aller and potentially finding a diamond in the rough for the Steelers quarterback of the future, Mike McCarthy might be perfectly suited to do that. And Rodgers, for a guy like Aller who has a lot of physical gifts, that might be helpful for him as well. But we're going to move more to veteran quarterbacks now because there are some quarterback competitions. Well, one of them's already over, but quarterback competitions that we were watching coming into the preseason that we got some actual footage on. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Square. Behind so many of the local businesses people visit every day is Square, a platform designed to help businesses sell, manage, and grow. Whether it's a neighborhood coffee shop or a packed sports bar on game day or your favorite restaurant, Square brings payments, banking, and more together in one connected system. It helps business owners spend less time managing technology and more time focusing on their customers. Square isn't just a payment processor. It's a complete business platform built to simplify the day-to-day, from accepting every major payment method to managing inventory, helping businesses access their earnings faster. Square gives owners the tools that they need to run their business with confidence. I noticed some of my favorite local spots run on Square, and I can always tell because the process is so seamless. So if you're starting a business or running one that deserves better tools, Square helps you sell, manage, and grow without slowing down. Right now, you can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/lockedonnfl. That's SQUARE.com/GO/lockedonnfl. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today. All right, Louie, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. Again, we talked about all the big news from preseason weekend number 1, the Falcons and their problems, Jordyn Tyson injured again, Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Drew Aller, some of the young quarterbacks had good debuts, but now we move to the veteran quarterback competitions that we have been following all summer. Obviously, there's one in Atlanta that we talked about earlier, but you want to talk about the Cleveland Browns because their battle is still ongoing. You have Deshaun Watson, you have Shedeur Sanders, and for the report from Cleveland on how both of them performed this weekend, we go to my guy Spencer German from Locked On Browns.
Deshaun Watson, in his first start since rupturing his Achilles back in October of 2024, looked the part of a quarterback that could potentially run this offense. It wasn't all perfect. There was the strip sack after Austin Barber got beat and the fumble that set up a Bear score. There was a rough 2-minute drive at the end of the first half that Todd Monken really wanted to get for his quarterback. And there were some of the patented Deshaun Watson dirted passes that we've come to know. But by and large, he found some rhythm at times, led a couple scoring drives, and looked like he was at least able to function within this offense, which is a good sign. It's a place to start for this point in the preseason. We'll see what comes from there. Shedeur Sanders took over in the third quarter. He had some really big throws at times that I thought showed the growth he's made as he in operating the pocket. The throw to Luke Floria over the middle, deep down the field, 35 yards, was one of them, where it was him standing in the pocket, ready to take a hit, and dropping back and firing a pass and cover zero to him. And then later that drive, to be able to step up in the pocket and sort of scramble a bit, then reset your feet to throw a check down to Amani Marshall on the right side in the flat, I thought was another telling throw. that he's learned to not just have those happy feet and drop in the pocket and be able to make some of those big-time throws, understanding what the coverages are and those types of things. So there were signs of growth for him. There was the interception. There was a fumble. Those are some of the bad for Shedeur today, but there's room for growth, and it's a big week ahead for both those quarterbacks as they get ready for the Bills to come to town for a joint practice and then that preseason game next week.
If it's even at all, you have to go with Shedeur Sanders. Like,
Totally
there's
agree.
just no upside to the Watson situation. You can always go to Watson if Shedeur is playing too poorly, but you start with the young guy, you support him, you see what happens. Maybe he turns into a diamond in the rough for you. If not, you lose games. You bring in Watson, you probably lose more games. But I just don't, from watching that performance from both those quarterbacks, I don't see how they could logically pick Deshaun Watson over Shedeur Sanders. And if they do, I'm sorry, I hate to play into conspiracies, but I've just felt like the entire time the organization did not want Shedeur Sanders. The owner wanted Shedeur Sanders. Like, he wanted it. And this just, if they don't give this to Shedeur after those performances, and we got to see more, but I'm just saying it just makes all the sense in the world to go with the young guy. And if they don't do it, I'm going to continue to believe that they just never wanted him to succeed there in the first place.
The only reason you would start Watson is just the pure stubbornness to admit that you made one of the most egregious mistakes in the history of the NFL and you continue to try to make it work, right? When it's it's done. Stop trying to fit this square peg into a round hole and justify that you paid this guy $200 million guaranteed. I just don't think it's worth it all starting him this year. And I'll never understand the strategy in the NFL. Arizona's kind of doing it too. The Jets, even with Geno Smith. What is the upside, the ceiling? I guess for a coach, they're trying to save their job, but if I'm a GM, I'm not even giving a coaching staff the opportunity to play a Geno Smith, a Jacoby Brissett, a Deshaun Watson. If we are rebuilding for the future and we have our eyes on the next quarterback class, play the young kid you have on the roster, Shedeur Sanders in this case, see if he's got it. If not, great, you have an answer. Go get the next guy. If he is the guy, perfect. Instead, you're going to waste a whole year. You know you're not winning a Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson. I'll never understand it. And so many teams do it year after year. I know the NFL doesn't really work in this, headspace that I'm in right now, but it can for a GM, it can for a front office. Stop even giving them don't give Aaron Glenn, don't give Todd Monken the option to play these kind of guys, which they always will fall back on because they want to save their job. So I'm with you. There is no reason at all outside of just covering your backside to start Deshaun Watson, just to justify an egregious mistake you refuse to admit is over.
Well, trying to understand what the Cleveland Browns are doing is probably a good way to descend into madness. You know what I mean? Like, it's just never going to work. But do want to move over to the Minnesota Vikings because their quarterback competition is now over. They have made Kyler Murray the starter. And in my opinion, Louis, they need to play Kyler Murray more than they did in the preseason game. He had 3 attempts. He had like 10 yards. You know what I mean? It's just like, I get that he's your starter. You want to keep him healthy. But going back, there were some people who had watched Minnesota Vikings training camp who were like, I don't know who's winning the battle right now. It's not like Kyler Murray ran away with it and showed that he has such a great handle on the offense. Right. He had some struggles with the offense as well. So I'm just like, I get that you thought Kyler Murray would win. He did win. He's your starter. I think the Vikings are playing with fire a little bit if they just treat Kyler Murray like, Drake May on the Patriots or, like Matthew Stafford on the Rams. Like, Kyler Murray needs to go out there and get reps.
Yeah, the Bills played Josh Allen more than the Vikings played Kyler Murray this weekend. So I'm with you. And look, I'm a Carson Wentz guy. I love watching Carson Wentz more than anybody that's still in this business. But the fact that the Vikings just did not feature their other quarterbacks more, especially Kyler. Yeah, I mean, you would think that he's been this 10-year elite quarterback that doesn't need to prove anything.
Yeah.
And he won the job, but like you said, he wasn't really running away with it in camp. I didn't hear anything all that impressive about him. So this is a big year for him to prove a lot, too, that he can still be a starting quarterback in this league. I was watching that game yesterday and kind of perplexed that he got pulled as quickly as he did. Yeah. Again, I believe that health is the priority in the preseason, but this is kind of a unique circumstance where I think he needs reps and you need a bigger sample size.
No, I 100% agree. That caught me off guard as well. But we'll see if Kevin O'Connell, who seems to know what he's doing with quarterbacks, except the one that he drafted in the top 10, He's kind of 1 for 2 now, if we're honest about. So we'll see what happens with Kyler Murray and whether he can win that 2 out of 3 matchup. But that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. Again, I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Legacy, Louis DiBiase. As we tell you every single episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.